gosh, thank you so much for that positive feedback. I sent you all a survey link to just a thing just to put your comments in, and it would be great to hear. Well,
You did. You sent it to me.
I sent it to Alice, but it's coming to you.
And we said after.
After class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you just type right in it. It should be really easy. Sure. It's like a survey monkey. But thank you so much to Charles Crane Family Foundation and the Center for Jewish Education and this lady right here.
And the Associated.
And the Associated. Yeah. So congratulations, really, really, and truly. The attendance, the focus, the commitment in this group is like the best I've had, and it's really too much fun. So we'll need time to oh, you provide me to sign them? Sign them under. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So what I thought, so for today, as you know, I like to come back to the original model each week. And you've gone through all the skills. And so we're going to pull it all together today. But I thought I'd start with a little review, and then remember we were going to add the consequences on in case you didn't come on. And I want to hear kind of how it went. But here were some of the assignments due. Please, I apologize for not getting the explosive child article out. That's pretty small. But the more article is fairly dense. I think I told you all last week. It's really about some of the research that's done looking at rewards and consequences. You don't need to read that. It's if you're interested in your school, say, if some schools, you know, they're heavily depend on points and level systems. Usually you see that more in like special education communities and grades that are a little bit higher. So, but in case you're interested, that's what that article was about. So before we get to the video, any feedback, comments on the Brown book, the Brene Brown's final?
I love it. Like the end of it. That's what I meant. I was reading through the chapter and certain parts that stuck out to me.
What are some of your biggest takeaways from these last readings from the Brene Brown? Starting with Brene Brown.
Well, I like the Brene didn't get us into it.
Usually people like any particular point that really struck you that is something that was very helpful in the last chapter?
I forgot what I
I
have a lot of senior moments.
So do I. Yes.
I like the article about creativity and play.
Yeah.
And like they decided in the family that they will hand out and what is more important and what's less.
Yeah.
I like it the most of this last.
So nice. It's almost like gives you permission to do what your instincts already know, is that the value of really just being with each other and the creativity and
creativity that is all around.
And creating the space to do that.
And it's
yeah.
My favorite quote is
What's your favorite quote?
the whole dance, like no one was watching, sing like no one was listening, and love like you've never been hurt and lived like it's heaven on earth.
Yeah, I've used that quote.
When it was in this book, I was like, wow, okay, she gets more points.
She has a whole website in case you're interested. They have online classes and
I also have the same. It's easy to see how difficult it is to make time for the important things such as creativity, gratitude, joy, and authenticity. When we are spending enormous amounts of energy conforming and competing.
Oh yeah.
in our world. Yeah, it almost takes it's almost like for me a practice, a daily practice, reminding myself, because I think in our world everything says otherwise. So that's why I love working with groups like you all.
Would you recommend any other books to read?
Of hers, or just others? Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child, #1 book that I think you will absolutely love. Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. It's the book, when I do the parent program, it's the same skills, but the book they read is Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. The author is John Gottman. Gottman. I think the subtitle is like The Heart of Parenting. It's phenomenal, and I used to, in my teacher trainings, he has great sections on different styles of interacting that are all driven from our beliefs about emotions. Really cool stuff. And I was so struck, and I continue to be struck by my mentor, Louise Gurney, really was just such a gifted, she's still alive, she's like about 90, she's so gifted at connecting with kids and just transforming the relationships. And she was really the bridge to the parents, that she believed that it would be far better to just train them in how you play with kids and interact. And so she would actually have like little microphones in their ears while they were in play sessions, and she used these 5 skills and then created programs. But now, over and over again, you see these same key interaction like things coming up, like John Gottman. When I read that after, I was just like, oh my gosh, there are 5 key skills in there too. Same things, just a little, different. You read Green, and he talks about the first 3 steps. Same things, and over and over and over again.
Is it John or Jonathan?
John.
Oh, John.
If you type in Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child, it'll come right up. Yeah.
Just a little feedback. So,
Yeah.
one of the examples, one of these little squares, let me see, about the child who was afraid that the other child was gonna take his toy.
Mm-hmm.
That one, I put it into practice.
Uh-huh.
My oldest grandson was afraid while he was at camp that his brother was going to destroy his Pokemon cards.
Oh.
And he kept saying that over and over to my daughter, because she calls me up. So I said, let me talk to him. So then I plugged in that scenario. Yes, I did. And he calmed himself down. I said, so I see something like, I see you're upset and you don't want your brother to bother your car.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you think you and your mother, you could do to protect your cards? And then he told me, when she gets home, she should put them under his pillow.
Oh.
And it calmed him down.
Oh my word, congratulations. That
was
really,
good.
that is
Well, we
really
can tell you that.
Yeah.
Once in a while I get it.
Yeah, that's great. How about the article by Green on the truth about consequences?
Very good, very
It's-
clear.
I love it, just.
After reading all this stuff, you can't even believe that you did anything else.
I know.
I know we all have, we've all done a sticker, we've all done like
Oh
a
my
desperation, but like, it makes no sense
It
when you
makes
read
no
it. It makes no
sense.
sense.
I'm so excited to come to your school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jenny,
yeah.
Jenny tells, my other instructor, Jenny, who you saw in the video with TNE in the car, she tells this really funny story about when she first started learning descriptive reinforcement. She was at one of these conferences, and she just was like, didn't know what to say, because that's all that came out of her mouth. The whole rest of the week she was like, and she said that something happened that year in summer camp, or some kid came in to visit, and there were a bunch of stickers left out, the ones, and they, just to illustrate the point, like, they walked in the other room, and basically he had covered himself head to toe in all the stickers.
The better purpose.
How's that? Yeah, the better purpose, so. And then, yeah, so any other,
So I noticed yesterday we were at the dentist, and my son clearly did not want to be there. And what I noticed was how the dentist was treating him and talking to him, and she had one agenda, and would get him in the chair and open his mouth.
oh gosh, you do hear it in doctor's
That was it. And every time he tried to say something, she overrode him. And finally he came over and sat on my lap, and I said, what if I brush his teeth in front of you? And so that's what we did.
Wow.
And then we talked afterwards in the car, and then I'm like, I understand. You didn't get a word in edgewise. But it's now clear, like you see when somebody does it and you recognize it right away, and then you also recognize when it clearly isn't happening.
Oh, yes. Yes, and then when you see kids and their behaviors, like they weren't born like that. I mean, some kids are born with extremely difficult, challenging personalities. My son might be one of them. He's got a challenging personality, but you continue to use, and then there's your gem. Like they polish them off. Something different happens. So, how about Buck?
Such a great word.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could share, this
Yeah.
is, so some of you know, we have a daughter who's been riding and showing horses since she was 5 years old. So, and then when she was in middle school, she started to play polo, so she currently works for the U.S. Polo Association. So she has 2 rescue horses of her own, which I helped her gentle, and we've actually met or heard Mr. Bannerman before. So I didn't know much about his personal life, which I found absolutely, so if you haven't watched it, it's hard to watch. I mean, it's really
It is
hard to watch.
Yeah.
So I was sharing with Jenny this whole, I said, have you ever seen it? She said, no, and I said, I was telling her about it, and I said, it's just, it just made so much sense to me, because I worked with her with the rescue horses, and just the patience, and the trust, and then I said, part of me was very proud because I see so much of Jenny, that's who Jenny is, and those of you who know Jenny, but, anyway, so I said to her, I said, it's, about the trust, I said, let me ask you a question, is there a horse that you've never ridden? Is there a horse that you ever was put in front of you? She said, no. And I said, well, why do you think that? I said, I watched the trust and the kindness. And she said, well, I'm not afraid. And I said, oh, you didn't show the horse you were afraid. She goes, no, I'm not afraid. And I thought it was kind of this aha moment, like, so how many times a week do we see children and parents who that's really what we see is fear.
Yes.
And if we can be brave enough,
Yes.
I think about her, I think if she's brave enough to just get on the horse,
Yes. Yes.
that it will work out. This is one of these
That's
aha-
like the opposite is trust a little bit, right?
Right.
Like
But
you
I
trust
s-
that you can.
And she said, I said, well, what would you add to that? And she said, don't be afraid. And I thought, well, that's a lesson for all of us to learn, not about teaching, but about life, is, don't be afraid. It's trust. Trust your instinct, trust, and I think to myself, all these families, we deal with it every day in our classrooms, because that's usually what you see. A child is afraid. A parent, you go to share with a parent, oh, I have this concern. It's just fear. It's just fear. And if we can be brave enough for them, because we take the time to educate ourselves and become aware of what can help. And so I just want to share.
Thank you.
So I told Jenny to please watch that.
Oh,
To let us know.
I'm many, many years behind Jenny, but I have a 13-year-old next week who rides, and it's been 6 months of riding for us, so it's like a new world. I definitely want to rescue a horse after watching that. I know that's besides the point.
I have one for you.
Okay. I don't have money, but it's okay. I want to. But I'm at a horse ranch every weekend, and I just said the same thing to her. I'm going to make her watch this too, because there is such a, we're watching. She was in a horse show last weekend, and she rides a 4-year-old who bucked her right off like a bucking bronco. Whoop, threw her right off, and she got back on. She kept going. But, he is now, the instructor is now working with him, and there's so many parallels that it's unbelievable. He's a 4-year-old boy. So the instructor just said to me, well, he's a 4-year-old. My mother-in-law almost ran through the ring and went after the horse. I'm like, leave the horse alone. He's 4 years old. He didn't know what he was doing. He got excited, But she's working with him, and she said he's a 4-year-old boy. So he now is learning how to self-regulate and how to respond. And I mean, I kiss those horses on the lips every weekend. So I'm like loving these horses anyway. But I love that. I love when they smile at you with their big teeth. Yeah. But they
say
There
there's
is-
nothing
there
better,
is such
better for
a-
the soul than the back of a back of a horse. There's nothing better for
We're
the
going
soul
on a
than the
trail
back
ride
of
for
a
her
horse.
13th birthday next weekend. That's her birthday present. All four of us are going on a trail ride. But I can't believe the similarities. Just everything that the instructors, she doesn't have her own children. She just works with horses.
Wow.
And it's very interesting to hear her talk, and I keep saying to her, you don't even understand the parallel between what you're doing with these animals and what we do with children.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same behavioral, and I loved the movie. I wrote down just a few things that as he was talking. Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not get bent out of shape.
I
I
wrote
wrote that
that
down
down
too.
too.
I never got that one.
Oh, I
What?
just
Really?
Say that one to me. I never pulled that.
The woman that adopted him, Shirley, whoever
yeah,
she said
you
that.
never get bent out of shape.
Yeah,
That's the-
blessed are
Oh
the
my gosh.
flexible. I love that one.
She also talked about feeling it's not only physically, it's mentally.
Yeah. I mean, she was great.
So funny.
I loved that when I first heard most everyone here knows DJ, right? DJ Jensen was she worked here before Allison did. And
old Allison.
there's no old Allison. She was here before. She's a good friend of mine, and she works in DC now as a director. And the first time I heard her speak at Bethaphylla 12 years ago, she started speaking about a more gentle approach, a more child-friendly, child-centered approach to being an early childhood educator. And I was working in a school as a early intervention person in Howard County Schools, and I was working with people that were, I mean, it's a great program and it was wonderful, but I happened to be working with a couple therapists that were very, very forceful. And the whole thing made me uncomfortable. They weren't letting them have their snack if they weren't communicating. It was like exactly the opposite. And I was so uncomfortable, and I had a child, so I was home anyway, I had a baby. So I was teaching a little bit, and I went to hear her speak. And she started speaking about this different way that you could interact. And she was bringing, the Reggio to light to me, and that's why I first heard of it, and that different approach. And when he said when he watched someone else deal with the horses, that he said, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, I need it. When he watched somebody else work with them in a more gentle way. And I felt exactly the same way about how, I don't know, I knew something wasn't right, but I don't know what the alternative is.
Yes.
And this in terms of social emotional is the alternative.
Mhm.
And so, there was just, I could go on, I loved the movie.
Yeah, and it was, right,
It was
you don't
wonderful.
recognize how unjust it is until you see it in a different way.
And he even changed the wording from breaking a horse to starting a horse.
Oh,
He said
yeah.
they said break a horse, and now they don't break them, they start them.
We call it gentle.
Yeah, I like that
We
even
gentle
better.
now.
Yeah,
We gentle horse.
yeah, I like that even better, because they say
Yeah.
break a
Yeah, it's
horse,
gentle.
and
This
always like,
therapist, she also say about fear and building, not the fear, but building relationship.
right, instead of
Mhm.
using fear, you use
Fear.
the relationship to build,
And
yeah.
I also love that he
Totally
said
love-
in order he's a couple things, in order to be, that he first has to get his own emotions under control.
Mhm.
Calm himself down.
Do they mirror them? Mhm.
Yeah, that the horses are a mirror to your own soul and.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the hardest part of the movie, was watching him deal with the woman who had
Yes.
basically ruined a horse.
Yes.
Oh, that
So
was
sad.
Yes,
So
that
sad.
was really sad.
For those of you who haven't, it's not a, but he was really to the point. I mean,
He was very direct.
But it was true. She had ruined that horse. She herself, and that's.
Here is a list that I pulled, some of the parallels that I thought were so interesting with the approach, right? So starting point, the horse needs to feel safe. Every horse can learn a bad horse from a sick horse. The empathy was seeing the world from the horse's perspective. He had like stepping into their hooves. Personal message was communicating expectations with respect, he talked about. Problem solving, that concept of dressage and cattle roping as a collaboration with the horse and the rider. I always think about this with my team. So now, that idea of, so you have, for those of you who maybe didn't see it, the way he starts to train a horse is that, they have the lead around their neck. And then he has the in his hand. And it's a gentle guide, but the minute the horse starts pulling back like this, like a kid or anybody resisting, he drops the reins completely. Slowly picks them up once the trust is there, and then slowly this dance starts happening where it's not a yanking or a pulling, if there's any on either side that doesn't feel right, drop them. And then slowly there's this gentle ability to lead. Such a great,
And then they follow him after.
and they felt, and
Yeah,
then
that
he's
was-
just moving his hand like this, and the horse is dancing this way, and the horse is dancing this way. And it's just,
I watched a horse follow my daughter the other day. She went to give him, like to spray him down.
Uh-huh.
And she dropped the rope and she said, watch this. And she walked across the whole thing and the horse just followed her all the way around.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is. And then using focus reinforcement, promoting good behavior rather than punishing bad. And then just the inductive discipline was that the consequences were measured to just what was needed. It was just that feather that they were just right on the side to know when they were out of line, like you're out of line. So a little bit of review, going back to inductive discipline, just that it's recognized as one of the most effective forms, and you want to use it when they're not responsive to other skills or the safety for yourself or others is at stake, psychological or emotional. And it involves describing in specific behavioral terms negative behavior, identifying in real concrete behaviors what you want to see, and then identifying effective consequences. So we're going to add that on today. But the most important thing is not in the moment, but later going back and talking about it using the other skills. Not in the moment. So the steps, again, there are 4. Let me just skip to the consequences. So we went over, I think we went over all of these, I believe. What I thought we'd do is go back around the room, and if you can pull up last week's skills worksheet, if you would like, if you don't need to, fine. If you feel like there's a consequence that you're still struggling with finding, just put your pen up and we'll go around and try and help you find a consequence that's effective. And if anybody has an example they want to share that was effective or they'd like more help with in trying to implement this, just put it out there. So it's fine if you don't have one. Anybody know of one offhand that you want to start just to help with the consequence? Yeah.
Well, I had the dumping water.
That
So
one.
The dumping of the child just dumps the water. You want me to go all the way back to the,
Yeah,
what I
again,
said,
if you can
so,
refresh my memory.
so, I've asked you not to dump your water.
Uh-huh.
You dump your water every day at snack time.
Okay, the absolutes you want to remove. You have to take the
Right,
absolutes out, and it should be right in that moment today, you.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Today, okay, you dumped your water on the table. If you are done with your water, then you need to put it with the water in the trash can.
Mhm.
And so the consequence, but we've kind of tried this, was obviously having him clean it up himself.
Okay, and that's a good logical consequence, but you were telling me it didn't work.
No.
Okay.
And so then the next, and I'm seeking, I mean, if this were to happen again, you come up with that, you can't shame them, you can't make them drink in a sippy cup when everybody else is using a cup, like I can't bring myself to do that. And then not offering water also seems like
I know.
an extreme because
Kind of where my
that's-
mind went, we're like, no cup.
But no cup, no water, and then, but then making him drink it, there, so I really kind of,
What about the water fountains?
they're like way down the hall around the corner.
Or drinking it at the sink, perhaps, and then discarding it in front of you?
What about asking them, putting it in front of me?
The trash.
It's with a cup of water, how about
Offer it again after snacks.
We do.
It sounds like
But
it's an
it's
impulsive
still-
thing,
it's
is what
just-
she's
it's just
described, I'm
something
not
to-
sure. She said, what about asking him if he would like it, and if he says no, that you take the cup away? But it sounds, from what I gather, what you said, it's an impulsive thing. He just says, he might even say, yeah, I want it, then drink it, and then he dumps it.
I mean, sorry, it's just one of those, I guess the harder part for me was coming up with a consequence that, that I just wanted to make sure would be okay with my director.
Yes.
Not offering water
Yes.
doesn't seem to be,
So I think this is something that we aren't really sure why he's doing. Do you, we don't really know. So when you don't know, You can come up with a consequence because you're trying, but you keep coming back and using the collaborative problem solving when you're not at that place. Because I think that skill is, so where you're communicating your concerns about that and your hopes for him. And then also, I think the main personal message is, I'm confused, I don't understand why you continue to do this. I just want to understand. But you continue each time. I mean, sometimes I think a consequence, with teens especially, is talking about it. That you keep coming back to it. It is definitely painful. We're gonna keep coming back to this conversation. I'm confused, I'm not understanding what's going on.
Maybe letting him dump it in the sink.
We've tried like water table, play, you know, this is where it's appropriate when you're done. I mean, we just let them do it in the trash can because.
It sounds like the, okay, so,
He wants control, he wants to.
Or maybe he's doing, maybe ask for a straw, like if he wants
Straw, I
a
didn't give a straw.
my hunch is that he's doing it as a, like, a funny, like, hi, aren't I so
that's it.
silly?
Yeah.
So the need there is something that will take a while to build back up. And you probably will need a consequence in place while you're working on that, and he's becoming aware of it. Because remember, going back to the beginning, you can't manage what you can't identify. I'm sure he gets a quick fix, people laugh at him, it's kind of funny.
Right.
Somehow we want to take that funny part away, but I think you do that by talking about giving him, right, a little bit of control. But there has to be a consequence in place and my initial thought is that, yes, he does have to take a water bottle, something like that. I think it's totally appropriate. He can still drink, or you walk to the water fountain. That, you know, it goes, his parents know that he takes, I mean, depending upon how harsh they are, I don't want a harsh parent, but that here's a water bottle, it's not a sippy cup, it's just a water bottle. Is there a water fountain nearby?
Not on our preschool hall.
Or you offer him the drink in front of the sink, he either takes it or he doesn't get any more. And you do that for 2-3 times and
Right.
see what happens. And you continue to discuss. And then if he can't do it, he has to drink it at the sink, it's done. But the problem, it's like plugging a leaky faucet, literally. It'll come up in another form if he's not aware of what's driving it and we don't give him some ways to, you know, who knows, be funny. I mean, just a way that's less aversive. Like, I'm fine with your being funny. It is funny. I don't like cleaning it up, and some of the kids don't like doing splash. You could shame him. You could put him in the center, put all the kids around him, and have all the kids tell him why they don't. Like a lemon squeeze, yeah.
I really think it's for funniness. I wonder if it would be beneficial if you, before you even do water, if you do like a game, like a funny face game, like something to get the funny game silliness out. And I don't know.
I think a lot of times aggression and things silly, they roll into the next. I think it would roll into the next. I think physical activity would calm that silliness down, definitely.
Or if it's
Maybe before that.
But like,
he's laughing.
Something to put a different behavior
What else
in.
do you
Yes.
find funny?
physical activity can be very helpful, but I still think he's gonna need to
And then
learn
it
that
becomes
without getting to
awkward
run around.
whatever.
Yeah, I think taking a couple away is what we're gonna need to do.
Right.
Take it
And
away.
just making sure
That's
that
like,
the
you
day
know,
he drinks
it's probably
something.
fine. There's a water fountain, he can get water at another time, he's not gonna die. You don't want the parents thinking you know, but yeah, no, if you want a drink, you have to drink it at the sink. Here, hand me the cup when you're done. Thank you. That's it. Okay. How about another one? Anybody need another help with
How
that?
do you deal with a parent yelling at you? I had a child dumping water on the carpet. And, parent used to yell at me and tell me, it's my job to clean it.
Oh, well, I'd use the same darn skills. I might not be able to be really empathic because unless I was like in a super chill mood. But I'd probably start with, I more than likely, I want to help you pull out your personal message. You have it. The parents, what's the parents' perspective? Maybe they just don't want their kids in a room where there's, you know, like soaking water on the floor, and they do feel like it's your job to clean it up. And, you know, and I if I could, I would say that, right?
Yeah, but he was really nasty. It wasn't nice.
Yeah,
giving
that's-
the
Good job to clean it up. Come on, let's go, yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah, I would wanna tackle that head on with a pretty strong personal message, but, I mean, because that's a boundary, that's like, to me, that's personal safety a bit, because he's being really disrespectful. But I do wanna do it in a skilled way that didn't flare his defenses.
So what would you say to him?
Right.
I want.
I would start out with empathy. I would say, you kind of feel like it was my job and I didn't do a very good job of it. I might just say that, just because it gives me space to breathe. And you kind of feel like I didn't do a very job at it. I really take my job really seriously. You know, I frankly, I don't make a lot of money doing this. I take my job very seriously, as well as the children's safety and yours included. And I don't feel like I deserve to be yelled, to be talked to like that. Or something, I mean, I have to think about it, it takes me a while, I am a little delayed like that. I might say, I want it to come from my heart. I take my job really seriously, I love these children, spend a lot of time investing myself and my time here and at home thinking about them. And it feels, I feel insulted when you told me that it was my job. It is my job to clean that up, it's more of the way that you said it, just made me feel disrespected. I might say that if I feel like I need to set my boundary for myself, like don't treat me like that. If I realize this guy is just a nut, and he's gonna be a nut, I doubt it's that personal, then I might just let it go and let it go. But do you know the kind of bullying behavior that you have to set the boundary, almost turn it around, and then the dynamic shifts? It's like they can sniff it out, and I want to do that right away.
I did tell the mother the next day, you know, I told him what happened, she apologized for him.
I think you'd want to go right to him.
Very bad temper.
Yes.
No, he startled me, I didn't go on.
Yeah, he startled. It was startling. I'd say I was startled. I didn't even know what to say. I just don't feel like I deserve that.
Well, she apologized, she also apologized to him a lot. Yeah, I know, I worked with her.
But it would be him that I want the apology from, or not. Or I would say, oh, this guy has a really bad temper. He's got a bad temper. Maybe the next time I say, you've had a...
He was laughing.
Yeah.
Go clean up, come on, honey, let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely, I would want to say something indirectly. I
told him,
would.
I said, he has to clean up his mess. He's not excused, he has to clean up his mess. Not my house.
And then I'd probably use a little bit of inductive discipline. You're asking me to clean up a mess that your son left. And then you pause and you wait. I'd like for your son to please clean up the mess. I mean, you could do, see, the thing is that there's a number of different ways to handle it. For me, I often prefer to step back and actually think about it and whether or not I want to actually address that. And I don't know, that's up to you. I would want to, because if I have to work with this, I really believe your relationship with a parent affects your relationship with a kid, and I would want to address that, but I'd want to be approaching it from a place of not really taking it personally, but just simply kind of requesting something different. But I'd have to think it through. I mean, I could do it, yeah.
I love what you just said, because I had a situation sort of similar to this, and I did exactly what you said. You just said to